It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio setup better be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Well, it's been one of the top reasons to get an electric vehicle. Sweet, sweet government money, right? Whether it's the used to be $8,000, now $7,000 from the Quebec government. Federal government has a $5,000 electric vehicle rebate. But for those of you who have been shopping for electric vehicles, you may have noticed, right, that, hey, well, it's great. You get a $5,000 rebate, but you can't even find the vehicles. Or you'll find that the car or the SUV that you want to buy is too expensive and doesn't even qualify for those rebates. So big news on Friday. Federal government announcing some changes to their $5,000 electric vehicle program. And with 2/3 of Quebecers saying they want their next car to be electric, will this be a good thing for those people? Let's find out more. Simon-Pierre Rioux is president of the Quebec Electric Vehicle Association. Simon-Pierre, welcome back to the show.
Elias, always glad to be back.
Were you at the big festival over the weekend of the electric vehicle show?
It was amazing. You should have been there. There were so many people. We had trouble walking around. And we're talking about the Olympic Stadium, and we had trouble walking around. There were so many people, so many cars, so many dealers and manufacturers showing off their latest and greatest. And, you know, there was like a really huge vehicle there they called the Hummer EV that took most of the place. It was humongous.
So, Simon-Pierre, I think what we saw over the weekend at Olympic Stadium is the biggest indication. I would think that the electric vehicle show is more popular than just a regular vehicle show right now in Quebec. Like 2/3 of Quebecers want an EV. So with that in mind, there's a problem. And that is so many of these EVs are more expensive than the maximums to qualify for rebates. So the federal government has made a change. Why don't you tell our listeners about the change the federal government just announced?
Well, it was pretty frustrating, Elias, because for many consumers, they were restricted in a bracket of prices that they could get the federal rebate. It was between $45,000 and $55,000. So anything that didn't start below 45, with trim levels going up to 55, did qualify, and anything outside of that, so if your car started at 49,000 or 47,000, then it did not qualify. So right now, what they did for cars, they upped it up by $10,000. So it's gone up. So the minimum price, manufacturer's suggested retail price, has to be less than 55,000, and higher price versions of these vehicles up to a maximum of $65,000 are also eligible.
Yeah.
And then now we were talking about trucks and pickups in the past few shows, Elias, and I was telling you we need to have like a different bracket for trucks and SUVs because those are not covered under that car rebate. And they finally have done it. They finally got it out. So now any trucks or SUVs that you want to get the Ford F-150 Lightning, well, it's anything that starts at 60,000 up to 70,000 will get the rebate.
So that's a significant change. If you go, as you were mentioning, so the old plan, you had to have the base model under 45, and then the car itself could be up to 55. Now for cars, that's going to 55 and 65, so an increase of basically 10,000 for those levels. And then now the new level for SUVs, so 60 for the base, 70 for the model with bells and whistles. So that's a huge increase. But Simon-Pierre, here's my worry. My worry
you
is,
worry, don't you?
my worry is the manufacturers, they're just going to raise their prices to that level.
You know, what they have done in the past, they tried to get like a Canadian spec car that was going right at below 45,000. So many of them did go at 45,995 just to get below 4,500. And they did cut out a lot of the bells and whistles like you were mentioning. And even then, like for example, Tesla doesn't even qualify now. They stopped doing that that trim level that was below 45,000.
Mm-hmm.
And we're at that point where we're hoping that they will still continue with that because prices will continue to drop as more and more cars are getting manufactured. And, you have to think about the average consumer that if the prices just go up too much, they're not going to be able to afford them, whether there's a rebate or not. And the manufacturers are also warned that if they do bring up their prices, they will not be eligible. There will be pressures from the
Mm-hmm.
federal government that buys a lot of cars, by the way. So they do have the upper hand saying, well, if you do intend to raise your prices all of a sudden, we will put pressure on you and we'll buy cars from another manufacturer for our federal fleet.
We're with Simon-Pierre Rioux. He's president of the Quebec Electric Vehicle Association, talking about an increase. And it's, as of today, by the way, April 25th, Monday, April 25th, is the day for these changes on the federal rebate program. Those cars can now be a little bit more expensive than as of last week. So, Simon-Pierre, this is all fine and dandy. They increase the price, the base price and the price of the car to qualify for rebates. But what does it matter if there's no cars available? What does it matter if there's still a huge shortage and there's waiting lists? Is there any indication, Simon-Pierre, about the car manufacturers doing something about these waiting lists?
Well, it's a complicated task right now because all these manufacturers are basically trying to buy cars from the factory. The different countries are all getting their cars from certain factories that are producing those electric cars, and they're all fighting for them. And the ones that are winning are the ones that have the most to lose as far as penalties if they don't sell electric cars. Mm-hmm. So European markets are well in advance compared to Canada, for example. That's a very small car market. So unless we have any type of more stringent legislation that gets passed pretty soon, and we're talking about like a zero emission mandate for Canada, and by 2026, 20% of all cars need to be electric on the market, and new cars that are being sold.
Isn't that really slow?
Pressure.
But Simon-Pierre, aren't those targets like 20% by 2026? So we're 4 years away from that. I think it's too low. There's no question we're going to reach that level.
It's too low if you talk about Quebec or BC, but it's pretty high if you talk about Alberta, Saskatchewan, or New Brunswick. So
true.
They have to kind of choose a middle ground so that it would put pressure for other provinces. And if it works for the whole of Canada, they will need to bring a whole lot of cars to be able to. It might be at 5 or 10% in Saskatchewan and at 40% in Quebec. But 2035 is still the deadline for the whole country.
Let me ask you this, Simon-Pierre. Last question here. Do you think some car companies are slowing down availability, not producing enough EVs, even though there's incredible demand? Do you think some of these companies are doing it on purpose?
No, I've talked to a lot of manufacturers, and they're struggling for most of them, trying to get some batteries, trying to get some CPUs, all these chip shortages, putting a lot of stress on their production line. They want to make money. They want to sell cars. That's their main goal. So they're not going to hold back just to think we'll try and increase the demand and have more pressure on prices, etc. We've seen dealerships in the U.S. that have played that game, and hot selling items like the Ford F-150 Lightning, fully electric, that was shown at $30,000, $40,000 over the manufacturer's suggested retail price, which is disgusting. And in Canada, and then they start to crack down on that. But in Canada, they did mention that if they were trying to do that, they would take the license out of the dealer's hands.
Simon-Pierre Rioux is president of the Quebec Electric Vehicle Association. I'm sure your association is very busy, Ovalay. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.